The note fell from his Bible like a whisper from God, and in that trembling second, I realized my husband had been praying for a death his own. The night it all began, rain tapped gently against the kitchen window, steady, almost hypnotic, the kind of rain that invites silence. Anna sat at the table, tracing the rim of her coffee mug, watching steam curl and fade. Across from her, Michael read quietly, the familiar creak of pages breaking the hush. The house was still except for the ticking clock and the low hum of the old refrigerator. Hey there, my dear family and friends. If you're already tuned in and ready to enjoy this story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because tomorrow I'll be bringing you another story just as captivating, and you definitely don't want to miss it. Back to the story. To any outsider, it would have seemed peaceful. But peace has a strange sound when it grows too deep, like something missing. They'd been married 15 years. Once, laughter had echoed in that small kitchen. Their conversations had spilled past midnight. Now, their love had settled into habit. Anna had grown used to watching Michael's face without being seen by it. He looked older now. The faint silver at his temples suited him, though his eyes always carried a hint of distance, like a man half here, half elsewhere. He'd been that way since Grace. Their daughter's name still lived on the edge of every thought but on the tongue of neither. Her passing had turned their words into fragile things, too easily broken. Michael adjusted his glasses and turned another page of his Bible. Anna caught his hand, pausing on a single verse, thumb rubbing over it like a worry stone. She wanted to ask what he found there every night, comfort or punishment. But the words stayed caged. "Do you want more coffee?" she asked instead. He shook his head. "No, thank you." The exchange was small, practiced, polite, the language of two people afraid of stirring ghosts. When the thunder cracked outside, the lights flickered. Michael looked up briefly, offering her a faint, tired smile. That kind of smile that said, "I'm fine, even if I'm not." She smiled back out of instinct, then dropped her gaze. In moments like that, Anna wondered when their love had turned from a roaring flame to a candle barely holding its light. Later that night, when Michael had gone to bed, she lingered. The house always felt different when he wasn't in the room. Not emptier, just truer. On the table, his Bible lay open, pages rippled from years of touch. She had seen that Bible through every stage of their life. At their wedding, during Grace's birth, even clutched in his shaking hands at the funeral. It was as much a part of him as his wedding ring. Anna reached out, running her fingers over its worn leather cover. She wasn't looking for anything. At least that's what she told herself. She just wanted to feel close to him in some way that wasn't words. The faint scent of him, cedar, paper and coffee, rose as she leaned closer. A bookmark peeked from the middle, hand cut from old ribbon, frayed at the edges. Something about it caught her, the way it sat crooked as though hastily placed. She slid it out, revealing under it a folded piece of paper, tucked so deep it almost disappeared between Psalms and Proverbs. For a moment she hesitated. There was reverence in his Bible, a sacred privacy she had never breached. But curiosity, mixed with that ache of emotional hunger, whispered louder. She unfolded it. Blank. At least it seemed, until her eyes caught faint pencil marks. Words, faded but legible. "If you must take someone, take me instead. Don't let Anna know. She's already lost enough." The room seemed to tilt. The clock ticked louder. The rain outside grew heavier. Anna pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. The handwriting was his, neat, deliberate, the same he used to sign birthday cards. Dated 5 years ago. Her chest tightened. That was the year of Grace. Her mind swirled. He prayed for his own death. The thought struck like thunder. She sank into the chair, heart pounding in her ears. A flood of memories rose. Michael weeping silently in the dark after the funeral. His sleepless nights, the way he'd begun walking alone at dawn. She had thought it was grief. Maybe it was guilt. She read the words again. Slowly. "Don't let Anna know." Tears blurred the ink. A sob slipped out, quiet, raw, escaping like a secret. How could love be this silent, this heavy? How could she live with someone whose pain she'd never truly seen? The bedroom door creaked open down the hall. Anna startled, hastily folding the note and sliding it back into the Bible. Her hands trembled so much she almost dropped it. Michael's voice floated softly. "Anna? You coming to bed?" She swallowed, forcing calm. "In a minute." He lingered a second, then nodded and disappeared. When the door shut, she exhaled shakily, her chest rising and falling like someone learning how to breathe again. Her mind screamed 1,000 questions, none with easy answers. Why did he write it? Was it despair? Was it love? Was it both? The thunder rolled again, long and deep. She stared at the Bible, open and silent on the table. The note had changed something. Maybe everything. Hours later, she slipped into bed beside him. The steady rhythm of his breathing should have soothed her, but it didn't. She turned away, eyes wide in the dark. Outside, lightning flared, pale, fleeting light across their room, revealing the photo of Grace on the dresser. Anna's tears came quietly, pooling on the pillow. In that moment she wasn't angry. Not yet. Just lost, in love, in grief, in the terrifying realization that even after 15 years, there were parts of her husband she'd never known. She reached out, fingers hovering above his arm but stopping short of touch. "Michael," she whispered. He stirred faintly but didn't wake. Her voice cracked on the next word. Not even a full sentence, just a breath of one. "Why? Have you ever discovered something about someone you love that made you question whether you ever truly knew them? Tell me in the comments. What would you have done if you found that note?" The rain hadn't stopped by morning. It fell soft and steady, like the world was trying to hush her thoughts. Anna moved through the motions of breakfast. Coffee brewing, toast burning slightly, the radio humming low, but everything felt wrong. The house seemed smaller, air heavier. The note's words echoed beneath every sound. "If you must take someone, take me instead." She couldn't unhear them. Couldn't unsee the faint graphite imprint of his handwriting burned into her mind. Michael sat at the table, reading as usual. He looked calm, collected, as if the man who'd written that prayer years ago didn't still live inside him. Anna studied him carefully. The way he buttered his toast. The way his lips moved faintly when he read scripture silently. The way his eyes softened when he reached the word grace in the passage. How had she missed so much? "Sleep well?" she asked, forcing normalcy into her tone. He nodded. "Better than I have in a while." A bitter laugh almost escaped her. He was sleeping peacefully while she'd spent the night unraveling. "Good," she murmured, staring down at her mug. The silence that followed was suffocating. She wanted to ask, "What did you mean by that note?" But how could she? To ask would mean confessing she'd opened his Bible, that she'd trespassed the only sacred thing he still kept private. So she smiled, lips trembling, and said nothing. When he left for work, she stood by the window, watching his car disappear down the wet road. As soon as he was gone, she turned back to the table. The Bible sat there again, open, almost as if waiting. Her pulse raced. She lifted the cover, the faint smell of old paper mixing with his aftershave. The note lay folded neatly where she'd hidden it. She unfolded it again. The words didn't change, but their meaning deepened. It wasn't just despair. It was devotion. The kind that aches. The kind that sacrifices. Still questions gnawed at her. Why ask God to take him? Did he want to die? Did he blame himself for their loss? Or was there something worse beneath that prayer? Her mind drifted back to the months after Grace's death, the hollow look in his eyes, the nights he'd sat outside alone, staring into the dark. He'd said he was fine. He'd said he just needed faith. But maybe faith had been the cover he wore for grief too heavy to confess. Anna sank into his chair and read the note again, fingers trembling over each curve of his writing. "Don't let Anna know. She's already lost enough." Her throat tightened. He'd written it out of love. Painful, misplaced love, the kind that hides instead of heals. She pressed the paper to her chest. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered to no one. That afternoon, she went through old boxes in the attic, searching for something, anything that could help her understand him better. The air was thick with dust and memories. She found Grace's baby blanket, faded pink, folded neatly beside her old Bible from college. Inside that Bible, tucked between Psalms, she found a photograph. Michael holding Grace in the hospital, tears streaming down his face. Anna wasn't in the picture. She'd been asleep. She remembered that night, waking to find him gone, thinking he'd just stepped out for air. Now she realized he'd been at the chapel, writing that note. The revelation hit like lightning. She knelt on the floor, clutching the photo in one hand and the note in the other. Every heartbeat whispered a different truth. He didn't stop loving you. He just never stopped blaming himself. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered into the stillness. "You fool! I would have carried that pain with you." When Michael came home that evening, the house was dim. Dinner half-cooked. Anna sat by the window again, the note folded neatly beside her. He hung his coat, noticing her stillness. "Long day." She looked up, eyes red but steady. "You could say that." Something in her tone made him pause. "Everything okay?" She opened her mouth, but no words came. Instead, she just looked at him, really looked at him. The man she'd built a life with. The man who'd held her through grief. The man who'd silently wished to trade his life for hers. She saw love and fear, strength and weakness, the fragile beauty of his humanity. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel angry at him for being distant. She felt sorry that she hadn't seen through the distance. But she couldn't tell him she knew. Not yet. The truth felt too sacred, too raw. So she simply said, "Do you still read the same pages every night?" He looked at her, startled. "Sometimes. It helps me remember what matters." "What does it help you remember?" she asked softly. He hesitated, gaze distant. "That love doesn't end just because life does." Her breath caught. He turned away, missing the tear that slipped down her cheek. "Dinner's ready soon," she whispered. That night, after he fell asleep, Anna lay awake beside him again. She studied his face, peaceful now, unguarded. His hand rested on his chest, rising and falling in rhythm with her breath. She wanted to forgive him already, though he hadn't yet asked for it. She wanted to hold him and tell him she understood. But she couldn't. Not yet. The wound was still open, not from what he wrote, but from what he'd hidden. Outside, the rain softened to a whisper. She turned toward the window, the streetlight glow painting faint gold across the room. She held the note once more, reading it by that fragile light. Then, quietly, she tucked it back into the Bible, the same place it had been before she found it. When she closed it, her reflection shimmered faintly in the cover. Her eyes red, tired, but alive with something new. It wasn't anger. It wasn't relief. It was awakening, the first stir of empathy that would lead her down the long road to truth. If you found a note from your partner praying for their own death, would you confront them, or would you try to understand why first? Tell me in the comments. What would your heart choose? Days passed. The rain finally stopped, but inside their home, the air still felt damp with things unsaid. Anna moved through the motions of life with a quiet precision. Laundry, cooking, church on Sunday. She smiled when she needed to, nodded through conversations, laughed at small jokes. But every time Michael looked at her, something inside her shifted. An ache, a question, a flicker of something she couldn't name. She'd hidden the note back in its place, yet it haunted her like a heartbeat beneath the floorboards. At breakfast, Michael poured her coffee. His voice was soft, careful. "You've been quiet lately." She stirred sugar into the cup, eyes fixed on the swirling spoon. "Just tired." He studied her a moment. "You sure?" She forced a smile. Hum. The lie tasted bitter, but truth felt dangerous. Every time she looked at him, she saw those words in his handwriting. "Take me instead." And every time she looked at herself, she wondered. Had she ever really known the man she loved, or had she only loved what she wanted him to be? That evening, she watched him from the kitchen doorway. He sat in the living room, Bible open as always, lips moving silently. The lamp beside him cast a soft halo over his shoulder, a picture of calm faith, or maybe desperate ritual. Anna crossed her arms, leaning on the doorframe. "What do you read every night, Michael?" she asked suddenly. He looked up, blinking. "Scripture." "I know that," she said, her voice gentler than her heart felt. "But which part?" He hesitated, then turned the book slightly toward her. "Psalms, mostly. Comfort." He smiled faintly. "Reminders." "Reminders of what?" He paused. "That even when you lose everything, you're not alone." Her throat tightened. The simplicity of it, the sincerity, almost broke her. She wanted to scream that she knew. That she'd read the note. That she understood his pain but hated him for locking her out of it. But she didn't. Instead, she said softly, "That's a good reminder," and walked away before her voice cracked. In bed that night they lay back to back. The distance between them was no more than a foot, but it felt like a canyon carved by years of silence. Anna stared at the ceiling, fingers twisting the bedsheet. Michael's breathing was steady beside her, the rhythm of a man who had learned to sleep through his own guilt. She turned slightly, whispering, "Do you ever wish things were different?" He shifted. "What do you mean?" "Grace," she murmured. "Us." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Every day." His honesty hit her like a blade. Not sharp enough to kill, but deep enough to bleed. She wanted to reach for him, to bridge the space between them. But she stayed still, letting the silence answer for her. At church the next morning, the pastor spoke about secrets, about how they rot the roots of love if left unspoken. Anna's heart pounded with every word. Michael's hand brushed hers during prayer, and for a brief second, she almost intertwined their fingers. But she didn't. The gesture felt false, undeserved, a mask over a crack she wasn't ready to reveal. After the service, Michael chatted with a deacon near the door. Anna lingered in the pew, her gaze on the altar. The cross gleamed softly under the light. Her reflection shimmered faintly in its gold. She whispered a silent thought. If he prayed to die, then what am I still praying for? At home, she found herself standing by the bookshelf again, staring at his Bible. She wanted to throw it, burn it, or maybe read it all over again until it made sense. But she didn't touch it. Instead, she picked up her own, untouched for months, and opened it at random. The verse that greeted her read, "Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things." The same verse Michael would write months later. She read it twice, feeling a strange ache of prophecy. Maybe love wasn't about understanding everything. Maybe it was about enduring what you couldn't. She closed her eyes, whispering to the empty room, "God, give me strength to love him even when I don't understand him." That night, as she set the table for dinner, Michael entered with a soft sigh. He looked tired, not physically but spiritually. The kind of tired that sleep can't cure. "Long day?" she asked. He nodded, loosening his tie. "Just work." She noticed a faint cut on his hand. "You hurt yourself." "Oh, that. Just a scratch." He said it casually, but his voice trembled slightly. Without thinking, she reached out and took his hand. Her thumb brushed the cut. His skin was warm, familiar, real. Their eyes met, and for a second something raw flickered between them. The kind of emotion that doesn't need words. Then, as quickly as it came, he pulled his hand back and smiled. "It's fine." The distance rebuilt itself in an instant. Anna turned back to the plates. "Dinner's ready." They, quietly. The clink of forks filled the silence. She wondered if he could feel her watching him, if he could sense the storm beneath her stillness. Later, when he was in the shower, she stood in front of the mirror brushing her hair. The reflection staring back at her didn't look like the woman she remembered. This one looked weary, haunted by a truth she couldn't share. She whispered to the mirror, "I know your secret, Michael." The sound of running water drowned her words. She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her face. She wasn't angry that he'd written the note. She was angry that he hadn't trusted her with his pain, that he'd chosen solitude over shared sorrow, that he'd prayed for death instead of asking her to help him live. That night she slipped into bed again. Michael turned to her half asleep, murmuring something, a prayer maybe, before drifting off. Anna lay awake listening. Every rise and fall of his breath echoed that note. Take me instead. She closed her eyes, whispering into the darkness. Don't you dare leave me again. Not in body, not in silence. The words were too soft for him to hear, but not for her heart to mean. It happened on a Thursday, the kind of gray, unremarkable day that never hints it will change everything. Anna was halfway through folding laundry when her phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Lawson. A calm female voice said. This is St. Mary's Hospital. Your husband, he's had a collapse at work. He's conscious, but we'd like you to come in immediately. The basket dropped from Anna's arms. Her heart forgot how to beat. Is it serious? He's stable. But he's asking for you. Those words pushed air back into her lungs. The drive blurred. Traffic lights, rain streaks, trembling hands on the steering wheel. All a haze of panic and prayer. She whispered between breaths. Please, God, not again. Don't take him too. When she reached the hospital, the antiseptic smell hit first. That sharp, sterile scent that always carried echoes of loss. She signed papers she didn't read, thanked nurses she didn't see, and followed the hallway light to room 312. Michael lay in the bed, pale but awake. Tubes ran into his arm. Monitors blinked steadily beside him. When he saw her, his lips twitched into a faint smile. Hey you! The sound of his voice, soft, tired but alive, broke something loose inside her. Don't hey you me, she whispered, tears rushing before she could stop them. You scared me half to death. He winced as he tried to sit up. Just exhaustion. They said my heart rate dropped. I'm fine. You're not fine. She pulled a chair closer, hands shaking as she brushed hair from his forehead. When was the last time you even took a break? He gave a weak chuckle. I didn't think I was allowed to rest. The words carried something deeper, a hint of guilt, of penance. Anna felt it pierce straight through her. The nurse entered, checked his vitals, and left again, leaving them in quiet. For the first time in months they were alone. No Bible, no distractions, no walls to hide behind. Michael looked at her for a long moment. You've been worried. She bit her lip. Of course I've been worried. No, I mean lately. His eyes searched hers. You've been different. Her breath hitched. She looked away, focusing on the slow, rhythmic beep of the monitor. Maybe we've both been different. A silence stretched between them, taut and fragile. I'm sorry, he said finally. For what? She asked, though part of her already knew. For making you carry this life alone. I know I disappeared, even while I was right beside you. Her throat closed. The words she'd wanted for years were finally being spoken, not in defense, but in surrender. She took his hand. You didn't disappear, she whispered. You just folded into yourself. And I didn't know how to reach you. His eyes glistened. After Grace. I couldn't breathe. I thought if I broke in front of you, you'd never stop breaking too. So I held it all in. Anna blinked away tears. He's finally saying it. Outside, thunder rolled softly. Distant, familiar. Michael's voice dropped lower. I used to pray every night that God would take the pain away. Sometimes I even prayed he'd take me instead. The words hit her chest like lightning. She squeezed his hand tighter. Don't say that. He shook his head faintly. It's true. I thought if I was gone maybe you'd find peace. I didn't want you tied to my sadness. Anna's tears came quietly, hot trails down her cheeks. Her lips trembled as she whispered. You fool. I didn't want peace. I wanted you. Even broken, even hurting. I just wanted you. He looked at her, silent, tears glimmering unshed. A nurse peeked in, adjusting the 4 pretending not to notice the charged stillness in the room. When she left, Michael exhaled slowly. "I don't deserve you," he murmured. Anna shook her head. "Stop saying that. It's true." "No," her voice hardened through the tears. "You don't get to decide that. Love isn't about deserving. It's about staying. And I'm still here." He turned his face away, overcome. His shoulders trembled, not with pain but release. For the first time, his silence broke into quiet sobs. Anna reached forward and gathered him gently against her, careful not to disturb the wires. His forehead pressed to her shoulder, her fingers running through his hair as he wept. "I'm sorry," he kept whispering. "I know," she murmured. "I know." They stayed that way for a long time, grief finally breathing in shared rhythm. Hours later, the storm outside had softened into drizzle. Anna sat in the dim glow of the monitor, watching him sleep. His breathing was steady now, his face peaceful, like a man who'd finally confessed his sins to heaven and been forgiven. She held his hand in hers, thumb tracing faint circles on his skin. From her purse, she pulled the folded note, the one she'd found days earlier. She stared at it a long moment, then slipped it gently under his pillow. "Now I know," she whispered. "And I'm still here." For the first time in years, she didn't feel angry or broken. She felt clarity, the kind that comes when love stops being a feeling and becomes a choice. The next morning, Michael woke to sunlight pouring through the blinds. Anna was still there, her head resting against the bedrail, his fingers laced with hers. He brushed a hand through her hair. "You stayed all night." She smiled sleepily. "I wasn't about to let you pray yourself out of this one." He chuckled weakly. "I don't remember praying last night." "Good," she said softly. "Then maybe it's my turn to do the praying." As the nurse came in with breakfast, Anna stepped out into the hallway, breathing deeply for the first time in days. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and fresh coffee. Life and loss mingled in equal measure. She closed her eyes and whispered a quiet prayer. "Thank you for keeping him. Thank you for giving us another chance." When she turned back to the room, Michael was smiling at her through the window, weary, fragile, but alive. And for the first time in years, she smiled back without pretending. If someone you loved carried guilt so heavy it broke their body before their heart, would you still stay? Not out of duty but out of love? Tell me in the comments. What does forgiveness mean to you? Michael was home again within a week. The doctors called it stress-induced collapse, but Anna knew better. His body had finally said what his heart had been screaming for years. He moved slower now, quieter, gentler. There was something fragile about him, like glass smoothed by the tide. Every morning, Anna found him on the porch wrapped in his old gray sweater, staring at the sunrise. The same man, yet not the same at all. She started joining him. 2 mugs of coffee, 1 unspoken promise. We begin again. For days, their conversations were simple. Weather, neighbors, church events. But behind the calm, she could feel something stirring, like a confession waiting for the right moment to breathe. One morning, she found him holding his Bible again. This time, the note she'd replaced under his pillow sat open beside it. He didn't flinch when she sat next to him. "You saw it," he said quietly. Anna's breath caught, but she nodded. "I did." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint rustle of the wind. Finally Michael sighed. "It wasn't meant to be found." "I know," she said softly. "But I think I was meant to read it." He turned toward her, eyes red-rimmed but steady. "I wrote that after the accident. The night we lost Grace." The world seemed to slow. Anna felt her heart fold inward. "Tell me," she whispered. Michael took a deep breath. "I remember every second," he said, voice trembling. The rain. The sound of her laugh in the back seat. The headlights that came out of nowhere. "I swerved but—" His voice broke. "When the car stopped moving I thought, God, I thought she was just sleeping." Anna's hand covered his, squeezing tightly. He continued, tears slipping free. They said it wasn't my fault. Everyone said that. But it was my hand on the wheel, Anna. How could I keep breathing when she couldn't? Her chest ached with every word. I prayed that night, he whispered. I told God to take me instead, to let me trade places with her. I begged him until my voice went raw. He looked down, shoulders shaking. But he didn't. And every day since then, I've been trying to live a life I didn't think I deserved. Anna's own tears fell silently. She remembered that night, the police lights, the stretcher, the white blanket. She remembered holding him as he screamed Grace's name into the rain. What she never saw until now was the guilt that stayed after the storm. For a long time neither spoke. The air felt sacred, heavy with both pain and grace. Then Anna whispered, "Do you want to know what I prayed that night?" Michael looked up, startled. "I prayed that God wouldn't take you too," she said, voice trembling. "Because if he did, I wouldn't have survived it. Grace was my heart. But you were my breath, Michael. And I couldn't lose both." He closed his eyes and a tear slid down his cheek. "Anna." She touched his face gently. "You prayed to die because you thought you'd failed us. But I prayed for you to live because I knew we still needed each other. We just forgot how to reach across the pain." He turned his head into her palm, his voice breaking. "I didn't think you could ever forgive me. I forgave you the moment I saw you hold her hand in that hospital room," Anna said softly. "You never needed to ask." The porch fell quiet again, but this time the silence was warm. Healing, not haunting. After a while, Michael chuckled faintly, a sound rusty with emotion. "I used to think God didn't answer my prayer." Anna tilted her head. "And now?" He smiled faintly. "Now I think he did. He didn't take me, because he knew you'd be the one to bring me back." Her eyes filled again, but this time with something softer. Gratitude, not grief. That evening, as the sun dipped low, they went through an old box of Grace's things together for the first time in years. Tiny ballet shoes. A school drawing of their family. A birthday card that read, "To Mommy and Daddy, the best team ever." Michael held it gently, tracing their daughter's handwriting. Anna watched him, noticing the tremor in his fingers. "She had your eyes," Anna whispered. "And your stubbornness," Michael said, a fragile smile on his lips. They laughed, a sound cracked and uneven but real. It was the first time laughter had returned to that house since the accident. Later that night, Anna found Michael writing in his journal by lamplight. She lingered by the door. "Writing another note?" she teased softly. He smiled. "Sort of." He turned the page toward her. At the top, in careful handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for giving me a second chance at love." Anna's heart swelled. She stepped closer, running a hand through his hair. "You don't have to thank me, Michael." He looked up at her, eyes glistening. "Then let me thank him." They prayed together that night. Not the desperate, begging prayers of old, but a quiet, honest conversation between two people who had learned that love doesn't erase pain. It redeems it. When they finished, Anna rested her head on his shoulder. "I used to think we'd never find our way back," she whispered. He kissed her hair. "I think Grace already found it for us." Tears fell again, but this time they were holy, cleansing. Outside, the rain began again, gentle, rhythmic, alive. And for the first time in years, Anna didn't flinch at the sound. She closed her eyes, listening. Somewhere deep in her chest, peace began to bloom. Do you believe true love means forgiving the unforgivable, or learning to live with it? Tell me in the comments. What does healing mean to you after loss? The weeks that followed were quiet. Not the heavy silence that once suffocated their home, but a peaceful kind that wrapped itself around them like a prayer whispered in sleep. Michael's health improved. His laughter came easier, though it still carried the gentleness of someone who knew how fragile peace could be. Anna noticed the small things first. How he started humming while making coffee, how he lingered longer by the window, how his eyes no longer looked lost when they landed on hers. Healing, she realized, didn't come in miracles. Came in mornings. One evening, she found him sitting on the porch again, watching the sunset. She brought out 2 mugs and sat beside him. "The sky looks like Grace's old watercolor set," he said softly. Anna smiled. She'd have loved this view. She would've, he agreed. "You know, I used to sit out here and talk to her. After she was gone. Tell her about my day. About how bad I was doing without her." Anna turned toward him. "And now," he exhaled slowly, "now I just thank her." The simplicity of it broke something open inside her. She reached for his hand, and he didn't hesitate this time. His fingers intertwined with hers, their palms fitting as if the years apart had been only seconds. They began going to church again, together this time. The congregation welcomed them back gently, with smiles and warm hands. During one sermon, the pastor spoke about grace not as mercy for mistakes, but as the courage to love again after the breaking. Anna felt Michael's hand tighten around hers, and she squeezed back. When the choir sang Amazing Grace, she finally sang too, the words trembling, cracked but filled with truth. At home, she noticed the Bible again, still sitting on the coffee table. This time it didn't scare her. She opened it slowly, letting the familiar rustle of thin pages fill the room. Tucked between the verses of Romans, she found another piece of paper, a fresh one. It wasn't a plea this time. It was a letter. She unfolded it carefully. Michael's handwriting stretched across the page. Steady, unshaking. "Anna, I spent so many years asking God to take away what hurt. I never thought to ask Him to help me live with it. You've shown me that love doesn't need to fix everything, it just needs to stay. If faith is the evidence of things unseen, then you are my evidence. You stayed. You loved me through the silence, through the storm, through myself. And for that, I will spend every day learning how to love you back the way you deserve. M." Anna pressed the paper to her heart, tears falling freely. It was as if God Himself had rewritten the note, from despair to devotion. That night, she slipped into bed beside him. He was half asleep, one arm draped lazily over his chest. She laid the letter on his nightstand, leaned close and whispered, "I found your second note." His eyes opened slowly. "And?" She smiled softly. "This one I'm keeping." He reached up, brushing his thumb across her cheek. "Then maybe that's the last one I'll need to write." They lay in silence for a while, the kind filled with heartbeat and breath, not emptiness but life. Outside crickets sang. Somewhere, a church bell echoed faintly in the distance, counting down the hours of a night that no longer felt so long. Over the next few days, they began rebuilding little rituals. Breakfast together, evening walks, laughter that didn't need to apologize for existing. One Saturday, Anna suggested something she hadn't dared in years. "Let's go to the lake," she said. "Grace's lake." Michael hesitated. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "I think it's time." The lake hadn't changed. The same willow tree stood by the edge, its branches dipping low into the water like fingers reaching for memory. They spread a blanket near the shore. For a while neither spoke. The water shimmered gold under the setting sun. Anna took out a small jar, one she'd kept hidden in the drawer of Grace's old dresser. Inside were dried rose petals from her daughter's memorial. Michael looked at it, eyes softening. "You kept them." "I couldn't throw them away," she said quietly. "They were all I had left to hold." He nodded, then reached for her hand. "Let's let them go together." They stood by the water's edge. Anna unscrewed the lid, her hands trembling slightly. The wind carried the scent of lilac and rain. Together, they tipped the jar and let the petals fall, drifting softly across the surface until the lake became a mosaic of red and gold. Neither of them spoke. The act itself was the prayer. When the last petal disappeared beneath the water, Michael whispered, "Good night, sweetheart." Anna smiled through her tears. "Until we meet again." They held each other for a long time, letting the silence settle, not as sorrow but as peace. As the first stars appeared, they started walking back to the car. Michael slipped his arm around her shoulders. "You know," he said quietly, For the first time, I think I understand what faith really means. Anna looked up at him. What's that? He smiled. Believing there's light even when your eyes are still wet from the dark. That night, when they returned home, the house didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt alive again, like a heart finally remembering how to beat. Anna sat on the edge of the bed, watching Michael put his Bible back on the nightstand. He hesitated, then reached for her hand. "Would you read with me?" he asked. Her heart fluttered. It was such a simple question, but to her it felt like a vow. She nodded. Yes. He opened to Corinthians, and they read together, voices overlapping softly. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. When they finished, Anna leaned her head against his shoulder. You know, she whispered, we never stopped loving her. He smiled faintly. No. We just forgot how to love each other. She closed her eyes. Then let's remember, one day at a time. He kissed her forehead. One day at a time. Have you ever found healing not in moving on, but in remembering with love? Tell me below. What moment in your life taught you that light can return after loss? Peace, Anna had learned, is fragile, like glass warmed by sunlight. It shines brightly until one hard truth slips from the shadows and cracks it clean in two. It started on an ordinary afternoon. Michael was in the garage sorting through old boxes. Anna was making stew, the same recipe Grace had loved. The smell of rosemary and thyme filled the house, warm and homely. Then she heard him call out from the garage. Anna, you should come see this. His voice wasn't alarmed. But something in the way it wavered made her heart tighten. She wiped her hands and walked over. Michael stood among half-unpacked boxes, dust coating his fingers. In his hand was an envelope, yellowed with time. He handed it to her without a word. Her name was written on it, Anna Lawson, in Grace's handwriting. Anna's breath caught. Where did you find this? In the bottom of her art box, he said quietly. I must have missed it all these years. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a folded letter and a small drawing. Crayon hearts, 3 stick figures holding hands under a blue sky. Mommy, Daddy, and me. She smiled through tears, until she began to read the letter. Dear Mommy and Daddy, I don't like when you fight. I pray to Jesus that you'll stop being sad soon. I know it's my fault. I'm sorry I broke the vase. Please don't cry anymore. I love you both forever. Grace. Anna froze. Her lips parted but no sound came out. Michael's expression changed from nostalgia to horror. She thought we were sad because of her? Anna pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Oh God! The air felt heavy, suffocating. The sound of the ticking clock echoed like a heartbeat on the edge of breaking. Michael sank onto a box, his face pale. We did that. We made her think our sadness was her burden. Anna shook her head. No, we didn't mean to. We were just tired. Stressed. She was so young. But she felt it, Anna, he said sharply, tears rising. She carried it. We were so busy surviving that we let her believe she caused the pain. She stepped back, his words slicing through her like wind through an open wound. Don't do this, Michael. Don't turn this into another way to punish yourself. He looked up at her, eyes burning. You think I'm punishing myself? I'm punishing us. Because we failed her. The words hit her like a slap. Failed her. We loved her with everything we had. He rose, anger and grief twisting his features. Love wasn't enough. Love didn't keep her safe that night. Silence. The room seemed to stop breathing. Even the dust in the sunlight looked frozen. Anna stared at him, stunned. You think I don't already live with that every single day? I didn't say. Yes, you did, she shouted. You said it in every prayer you whispered to die. You said it every time you looked at me like I was a reminder of what you lost. Her voice cracked, tears spilling freely. Do you know what it's like to watch the man you love vanish piece by piece and still stay, still fight for him, and never be enough? Michael's chest heaved. And do you know what it's like to wake up every morning wishing it had been you instead of her? They stood inches apart, hearts pounding, grief colliding like thunder. And then, just as suddenly as it came, the fight collapsed into silence. Anna's breathing slowed. The letter slipped from her trembling fingers, landing softly on the floor. Michael sank to his knees, hands over his face. I didn't mean to. I know, Anna whispered, her voice hollow. I know you didn't. She turned away, walking toward the door, tears blurring everything into gray. But I can't keep being the one who reminds you of everything you've lost. Anna, he said, reaching out. Please. She stopped in the doorway, not turning back. I thought we were healing. I thought we were learning to live again. But maybe we've just been pretending. Then she was gone, the screen door slamming softly behind her. That night she didn't come home. Michael sat alone in the dim kitchen, her bowl of stew untouched on the counter. The house felt hollow again, echoing with ghosts. He picked up Grace's letter, tracing her tiny handwriting through tears. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he whispered. I'm so sorry. In that moment, he felt the old ache return, the same one that drove him to his knees years ago. But this time the prayer was different. Don't take me, he whispered to the heavens. Just bring her back to me. Please. Bring Anna home. Anna drove aimlessly for hours, the night swallowing the road ahead. She ended up by the lake, the same place they'd let go of Grace's petals weeks before. She sat on the shore, wrapping her arms around her knees, staring at the water that shimmered faintly under moonlight. I can't do this again, she whispered. I can't lose him too. The words hung in the cold air, her breath visible in the dark. She thought of Michael's face, the guilt, the tears, the love beneath the anger. She thought of Grace's letter, her innocent plea for peace. And she realized that even now love was asking them for the same thing Grace had once prayed for, to stop being sad, to forgive themselves, to begin again. Anna buried her face in her hands and wept until the stars blurred. Back at home, Michael sat with his Bible open to the same verse that had saved him once before. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. He read it aloud, his voice breaking. Endures all things, all things. Then he whispered, even this. Have you ever said something in anger that shattered the very thing you were trying to protect? Tell me in the comments. Do you believe love can survive even after words that cut too deep? Morning light slipped gently through the curtains, painting faint gold lines across the kitchen floor, the same floor where the fight had broken them the night before. Michael hadn't slept. The stew on the counter was cold now, untouched, the smell fading into something faint and sad. Every tick of the clock felt like a heartbeat he didn't deserve. He sat at the table, Bible open but unread, his fingers tracing the words out of habit more than faith. Anna's absence filled every inch of the house. Her coat missing from the hook, her pillow cold, the silence enormous. For the first time in years, Michael was alone again, not because God took someone from him, but because he'd driven her away. He whispered into the empty room. What have I done? Across town, Anna sat in her car parked by the lake, staring at the pale morning mist hovering above the water. She'd spent the night here, wrapped in a blanket and thoughts that wouldn't let her rest. The letter still sat in her lap, Grace's innocent handwriting glowing softly in the light. She ran her fingers over the paper again and again, as though touch could rewrite what was written. I don't like when you fight. Her tears came silently, one by one. She thought of how far they'd come, from silence to confession to healing, and how quickly one moment of anger had sent them tumbling back into darkness. Maybe that was the truth of love, she thought. Not the absence of pain, but the courage to rebuild every time it fell apart. But she wasn't sure if she had the strength left to rebuild again. Back home, Michael picked up his phone at least a dozen times, typing and deleting messages he couldn't send. I'm sorry. Please come home. I can't do this without you. Each one felt too small, too broken. Words couldn't hold the weight of what he felt. Finally, he wrote something different, something simple. Grace wanted us to be happy. I'm ready to try again if you are. He stared at the message for a long time. Then, with trembling fingers, pressed send. Anna saw the notification flash across her phone screen. She didn't open it immediately. Her heart couldn't bear it yet. She sat for a long time, eyes on the water, thinking of all the years they'd spent trapped in their separate cages of grief. When she finally read his words, a tear fell onto the screen. It wasn't elaborate. It wasn't a plea. It was truth. She whispered aloud, ready to try again. And something in her chest broke open. Because for all their hurt, she knew she still loved him. That love had changed shape over the years, from passion to pain to prayer, but it had never disappeared. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Grace, what would you want me to do?" And in that moment, the wind picked up gently, rippling across the lake's surface, scattering a single golden leaf onto the water, the same spot they'd released Grace's petals weeks earlier. Anna smiled through her tears. "You always were good at giving signs." She turned the key in the ignition and started home. Michael was sitting on the porch when he saw the car pull into the driveway. For a heartbeat, he thought he was dreaming, that exhaustion had conjured her like a ghost of forgiveness. But when Anna stepped out, eyes red and tired but steady, he stood quickly, heart pounding. Neither of them spoke at first. He took a hesitant step forward. "You came back." She nodded slowly. "You sent the right message." Michael swallowed hard, voice trembling. "I didn't know what else to say." Anna looked at him for a long time. Maybe that's why it worked. They stood in silence for a while, the air heavy with things they both wanted to say but couldn't yet find the words for. Finally Anna said, "You were right, Michael. Grace felt our sadness. But she also felt our love. That letter, it wasn't just guilt. It was her way of trying to keep us together." Michael's eyes filled. "And we almost let her down again." "Almost," Anna said softly. "But not yet." He took a shaky breath. "I don't know how to fix this." "Neither do I," she admitted. "But I know how to start." He met her gaze. "How?" She stepped closer, reaching for his hand. "By forgiving the parts of ourselves that can't change, and loving what's left." He closed the distance between them, pressing his forehead against hers. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. Anna smiled faintly. "You keep saying that, but maybe that's the point. Maybe love isn't about deserving. Maybe it's about choosing, even when it hurts." His tears fell freely now, soft and trembling. "Then I choose you, Anna. Every version of you. Even the broken one that yelled at me yesterday." She let out a shaky laugh through tears. "Then I choose you too, even the stubborn one who thinks he can outpray pain." He chuckled, pressing his lips to her forehead. "Deal." They sat together on the porch steps, the morning sun warming their faces. The world felt new again. Fragile, yes, but filled with quiet hope. For the first time in years, they didn't talk about Grace, or the past, or what they'd lost. They just sat, hand in hand, watching the light spill across the yard. Michael reached into his pocket, pulling out something small. It was Grace's drawing, the one with the 3 stick figures. He smiled. "I think she'd like to see it back up." Anna nodded, tears soft but peaceful. "Put it where it belongs." They walked back inside and pinned it to the refrigerator, a small, imperfect masterpiece that had somehow outlasted their pain. That night, as they climbed into bed, Anna whispered into the dark, "Michael, when you prayed for God to take you, do you think he answered?" He turned toward her, eyes soft in the glow of the lamp. "Maybe not the way I expected. Maybe he didn't take me, because he knew we weren't finished learning what love really means." She smiled faintly. "And what does it mean?" He took her hand, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "It means choosing to stay, even when it'd be easier to leave." Do you think love is a feeling or a choice? Or both? When everything breaks, what makes you stay? Share your truth in the comments. A week later, the town woke to one of those perfect spring mornings where the sky looked newly washed and the air carried that first scent of bloom. Anna stood in the kitchen, stirring coffee for two. Sunlight poured through the window, falling across Michael's Bible on the counter, the same one that had started everything. It was open again, this time to the page where the note had once been. Only now there was a new one tucked inside. Her handwriting this time. Love didn't end with the storm. It waited for us to return. She smiled softly, slipping the Bible closed and pressing her hand over it. A silent thank you to the one who had rewritten their story from ashes. Michael walked in, hair still damp from the shower, the smell of soap and cedar lingering around him. He grinned at the sight of her. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," she said. "Too many things to be grateful for." He leaned against the counter, taking her in. "I like this version of you." "What version is that?" "The one who smiles without apologizing." She laughed, shaking her head. "You always did have a way of saying the right thing too late." He took the coffee cup from her, their fingers brushing, sparking that quiet, familiar warmth that had once been lost but now felt new again. "Better late than never," he murmured. Later that day they drove to the church. The old wooden sign out front still read, "Community Outreach, Volunteers Welcome." Michael had mentioned helping with the youth group's garden project, something Grace had always loved. It felt right, not as an act of penance but of renewal. They arrived early. The garden was a patch of earth behind the church, filled with half-grown flowers, weeds, and patches of stubborn clay. Anna knelt by the soil, her fingers digging into the dirt. "She would have loved this," she said softly. Michael joined her, planting beside her. "I think she does." Anna looked at him, really looked. His hands were steady again. His eyes no longer haunted. There was light there, fragile but real. And in that moment, she realized something profound. She wasn't rebuilding the same marriage she'd once had. She was discovering a new one born from honesty, faith, and shared scars. When the church bells rang noon, the other volunteers joined them. Laughter and chatter filled the garden. Children's hands patted soil clumsily, faces smeared with dirt and joy. One little girl, no older than Grace had been, came running to Anna with a small flower. "Can you help me plant this one?" she asked shyly. Anna smiled, taking the flower, a soft purple pansy. "Of course, sweetheart." As she pressed the flower into the soil, her throat tightened. The girl's tiny hands reminded her of Grace's, gentle, clumsy, full of life. She whispered under her breath, "For you, my love." Michael watched her, a lump rising in his throat. He saw the way Anna's eyes softened when the child laughed, the way her shoulders had lost that heavy slump they carried for years. He felt it then, that this was what Grace would have wanted. Not eternal mourning but living, loving, planting, growing. When Anna stood, brushing the soil from her hands, he handed her a small cloth and whispered, "You did good, Mama." She blinked fast, tears shimmering but not falling. "We did." That evening, they drove home with quiet music playing between them. The sun was setting, painting the horizon in pink and gold, the same colors that had washed the sky the day Grace was born. At a red light, Anna reached over and placed her hand over his. "Do you ever think she knows?" she asked softly. Michael smiled faintly. "I think she's the reason we found our way back." Anna nodded. "Then maybe that's the miracle. Not that she's gone, but that she never really left." Back home the house felt warm again. Lived in. The refrigerator still held Grace's drawing, now framed with a small note Anna had added beneath it. "Love endures all things." Michael set 2 plates of dinner on the table. "I was thinking," he said, "maybe we could invite Pastor Lewis next week. He mentioned starting a support circle for parents like us." Anna hesitated, then smiled. "I think that's a good idea. It's time we stop hiding what healed us." He nodded, the simple truth of it landing between them like a promise. After dinner, they sat on the porch again, wrapped in a blanket, watching the fireflies dance in the yard. The air was cool, carrying the faint hum of crickets. Anna leaned against him. "You remember what you said that night?" That love means choosing to stay. Michael nodded, his arm tightening around her. Yeah, she smiled. I think love also means learning how to stay, even when everything in you wants to run. He kissed her temple softly. Then maybe we're both still learning. Good, she whispered. Because I never want to stop. Later, as they went inside, Anna paused by the Bible one last time. She opened it again to the page where her note rested. Then, on impulse, she took out a pen and added one more line beneath her handwriting. And love keeps finding its way home. She closed the Bible gently and looked at Michael, who was watching her from the doorway. What did you write? He asked. She smiled. Just a reminder, for the next time we forget how far we've come. He walked over, wrapped his arms around her from behind and whispered, Then let's never forget again. Outside, the night hummed softly. No ghosts, no grief, only the quiet sound of two hearts still learning how to beat together. And somewhere in that stillness, a child's laughter seemed to echo faintly, warm and pure, not haunting but blessing. They stood there for a long while, in a house that finally felt whole again.
Thank you for staying with us until the very end of this video, and I'm confident you enjoyed it. We've got plenty more exciting and heartwarming stories waiting for you. Just click on the image on your screen to watch the next one.